Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara on Tuesday, the 12th of November 2024. Wow, what a morning. It's light already, Dave. It's light.
Yeah, how
My
about
window
that?
here, it's light.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah. It used to be at this sort of time it was not. It was dark. It was dark until the time change.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of daylight savings time is to put the light where during the times that people mostly move around and work outside and so on. That's why it doesn't make any difference to farmers, because when the light comes up, the light comes up. But for factory workers and other people like that, that made a big difference. And when they put the daylight savings time to the test back in the 70s, they found they could save 1% of the U.S. energy consumption, which is an incredible amount, by switching to daylight savings time or continuing. I don't know if that still holds true.
I don't think that is true. There's been new studies which have basically been saying that daylight savings is a waste of time.
Yeah,
I think there's a shift in industry since then.
Yeah, so it may not be nearly as important right now, but when a guy's getting up and going to work, and he's going to start putting the shovel in the ground at 7 o'clock in the morning, and there's some light there, that makes a big difference. Still,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It still probably is a factor for a lot.
We're also doing a lot more. We don't leave things to chance anymore. If you're doing roadworks and you're going to be digging a hole at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're going to start your shift at 6 o'clock in the morning. Whatever, whether it's bad weather or good weather, you're going to be putting lights on that situation. You can work 24/7 on it nowadays, right?
Well, yeah, that's a big deal. I remember working outside when it was dark, and they had these huge light banks that flooded the areas with light, so you could still work safely in light. But if you take a construction crew or something like that, guys are building houses right now, and they come to work at 7 o'clock and it's light. That makes a difference. But if they come to work at 7 o'clock and it's dark, it takes them a while to get their bearings. But if they start off when it's light, so it's still an advantage for some people in our society. And that was the whole point when they came up with it many years ago, was to shift the daylight to the area at times in which people are mostly working, because daylight made a big deal. Even the old factories, if you see them nowadays, you see all these walled off windows that used to be there. Even Sir Adam Beck, if you go by Sir Adam Beck, you'll see up all these what used to be huge windows. They're all walled off.
Many of them are whited out now, aren't they?
Yeah. So or just walled off. And in the old factories, you see them. There is a lot of use of natural light, or attempt to use as much natural light as possible. You don't need that anymore. So there was a genuine use for it at one time, and that's why governments all around the world adopted it, especially in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anyway, okay, that's kind of it's kind of where we're like, it's light outside right now. Okay.
Yeah, so, I work construction, so when you go to work and it's like this, it makes a big difference than when you go to work.
I get it. No, I get it. But those, as you say, everything's conditions have changed. Okay, so Niagara Falls Farmers Market is they're looking at moving back to McBain Center. Tell me why, Dave. Why did we do that? Why did we do this? We kind of moved them back to the to the Arts Center, to where they were, and now we're going to the Exchange, and now we're going back to McBain. I'm mystified. It seems like a public waste of money to me.
No, the very first time I went to the farmers market at the Exchange, I could see that it wasn't nearly as good as the one up at McBain Center. It really wasn't. There was limited parking. There was a smaller area where the vendors could ply their trade. Some of it was inside, of course. Some of it was just inside, and I could see that that was not as good of a situation. When you had the McBain Center, you had a lively bunch. You had a whole lot of people going there, and you had lots of space and room for the vendors to be there. But despite the weather, but when you when you went to the exchange, it was cramped. That looked like there was less vendors in it. And one vendor that I talked to, that I know from Honeymoon City Toastmasters, that's the Ethiopian samosa maker. Her samosas are very, very popular, and believe me, they're wonderful. She told me that she wished they'd just gone right back to the McBain Center because things were better there. They had a better trade. So they made a mistake. They made a fundamental mistake. They decided they were going to move everything to the McBain Center
I have to say I wondered about that in the first instance, right? Because the farmers market was actually already overflowing that area to begin with, but years ago, and there was never any parking for the farmers market anyway. So what we needed with a farmers market, I think we still need it in that same basic area in the center somewhere. But I think it needs to have its own, market area, its own parking.
And you're not gonna get it down there. There is parking at parking lot number 13, close to the corner of Main and Ferry there. But there wasn't enough basically. Well, when you went there, you had to look around
you're touring around it.
You had no trouble getting a parking spot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're going around and around and around for your parking.
You're waiting for somebody to leave, and then then somebody jumps into the place that you were waiting for, and so that was part of the problem. And another thing they discovered though is if they want events to happen during the weekend, other kind of events that happen during the weekend in and around the exchange,
they
can't do that because the market needs to start to set up on a Friday night, and then it takes up Saturday, and then whatever other event may want to come in don't have enough time to set up, even if they just want to do Saturday or Sunday. So when in retrospect, now they're looking at this in retrospect and saying, well, we had a really good thing going on at McBain Center. We actually had more sales, more vendors, more sales, and people liked it a lot better because it was easier to get parking. It's a much bigger field. So I think they learned a lesson. Basically, it was a surprise to me when they moved it. The first time I saw the farmers market when it went back to Sylvia Place there, I thought, oh, this is not as good as it was at McBain.
Okay, so when's this starting? I believe it's next summer.
Yeah, so they'll finish out this season, but next year they're going to start the farmers market back at McBain Center. I think most of the vendors, I think the lion's share of the vendors are going to be pretty happy about that because they weren't selling as much as they were at the McBain Center, and that's what the article says.
And for those that don't know, when does the market open in the morning on Saturday, and when does it close?
I'm not sure. I was never there when it opened. It closes at noon, I think, around noon.
Okay.
Or maybe a little after, but
I believe it's 7, but I could be wrong. I'm never there I've never been there when it opens either.
So it's the farmer market is a good deal, and if it's a better venue for the farm, if McBain Center is a better venue for the farmers, then we should put it in McBain Center because that's what we want. We want it better for our farmers.
Yeah, I'd just have to say that, hey, with it being at McBain, the other side of the city, I'm less likely to go.
Well, the it's easier for a lot more people to get there.
Yeah,
The
I
city's
know,
actually expanding into the south,
I
and
know it is, but I
it's
live
more
in the
open.
north. Yeah, I live in the northeast, so it's a lot harder to get to McBain. It's a lot longer drive to get to McBain than and with the traffic these days, it's even hard. It's even tougher to get there.
Well, that's not the case for most people, evidently, and the
Yeah.
mayor pointed out that there are other things there. There McBain Center where families
Oh, I
go
know.
with
I
their
know.
kids and
Yeah.
swimming pool. There
I know.
there's all that shopping up and around that area where people can go before or after going to the farmers market. So it's a much more multitask type of location because you can go there. You can go to the McBain Center. You can go to any one of the shopping centers there in and around that, because on the weekend that's what people, if they have to shop, that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
They'll do it
All
on
right.
those days.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just a cynic, just being cynical, Right. So due to
Well,
poor planning,
they have a version of Dine and Dash that can deliver them to your house, maybe like Farm and Dash or something.
yeah. Okay. So Mike says, due to poor planning and no parking at the new exchange, a waste of money pit. We will be moving back to McBain Center. Yeah. Okay. What is the purpose of the new exchange? Yes, good question, Mike. It seems, yes, we've got some new art stuff there, but yeah, good question.
Well,
Good morning.
right
Good
now,
morning,
they
Peter
say that
Biker.
they can have other events there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. Good morning to Peter Biker and to Chris Simone. And
hello, Chris.
Randy West is basically saying we're spending millions and millions to reinvent 12 blocks of city that that should truly be leveled for a park. Yeah. And
Yeah,
Chris Simone chimes in that McBain was easier and more open for people.
yes, that's exactly right. Plus, if you look at the people in and around the Sylvia place, there's homeless people. There's like a lot
Yeah.
of dodgy looking people. When you get older folk or women and stuff like that, they don't like that.
Yeah.
They get but McBain Center, it's you very rarely get homeless people up that way, and I don't know, that might be part of the factor. But the exchange can be now opened and used for other purposes, events during the weekends.
Yeah.
So this is if they do that, that would be the McBain Center. You can have your farmers market there, and you can have events during the summer at the exchange, which when you have outdoor type of events, that's where you want them to be.
Yeah.
That would be a good place for them,
Yeah. Okay.
But I have this feeling events wants to other events now want to move the McBain Center too.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not complaining about what McBain Center has got. It's a huge area they've got there. Yes, where the market was much more than they had on offer in the exchange area. Right.
Well, remember the market at Sylvia Place had been running for 50 years, and the people who were there were pretty satisfied with it. But when it went to the McBain Center, it was much more successful. That didn't sort of click in right away,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get it. I just wish we had a full market where we could get veggies, clothing, and toys and things like that. A full complete market like they do in Europe.
Well, like Kensington Market or St. Lawrence Market in Toronto.
Well,
yeah, it would be nice. It'd be nice to have a fishmonger there, a cheese
meat
guy, all that kind of things. Yeah.
Everything, yeah. The farmers market is what I would call a flea market rather than a market per se. It's a flea market. It's got interesting stuff, but but it's not a real market.
No. And well,
Mike's
we'll fix
saying
it. We'll
something
fix it.
really
We'll send
stinks.
it. Okay.
Mike's saying something really stinks about the exchange.
I don't know.
We should be talking. We should talk to Christian Bell about that, because Christian has been talking for quite some time about the 1% rule, about utilizing only 1% of the city budget to ensure we have an art an art culture within the city, and that in fact places like the Exchange facilitate that.
Well, Niagara, St. Catharines got a little bit more hip on the art thing. That's something that really hasn't really factored into the psychology of this town. We've always been a little bit behind in the arts and having them represented here. As a matter of fact, every time you have a good artist here, whether it's James Cameron or Dead Moss, first thing they go is leave.
Yeah.
Because this is not welcoming to the arts, this area here.
Yeah.
Toronto, maybe. In St. Catharines is better off.
Actually, St. Catharines, when you think about it, they did this concert about people from Niagara, people who'd left Niagara. They did this concert last year, including some pretty famous names.
Yeah, and believe me, I stayed here in Niagara, and I'm yet to be discovered. So there you go. There's proof positive right there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, Salamia. See?
Wrong. I don't think you'll succeed with that one.
Oh no.
No, your voice is
go back to my opera teacher.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get into the operas. Okay.
How about a groovy saloon singer? Yeah, baby. Fly me to the moon. Well, God, I don't know why I'm not selling records all over the place.
All right. Okay, so there's going to be new funding to support public safety and address some homelessness in Ottawa. And this is funding that is largely coming from the province. So this is about $48 million worth of funding, which the government of Ontario and the city are kicking in together. And basically, they're providing new provincial funding to improve public safety and transit in the downtown core, and $40 million to help address increased numbers of asylum seekers and people experiencing homelessness there.
Where's that article?
That was the one, the Ottawa's New Deal continuing to deliver for Eastern Ontario.
Oh, yeah. I read that. Let's see if we can find it. So I can refer to it.
And basically, Doug Ford is there to say, hey, with our historic New Deal for Ottawa, our government is demonstrating our ongoing support and commitment for the success of Ottawa and all of Eastern Ontario. And he's also saying, with today's announcement, we're continuing to work closely with Mayor Sutcliffe to improve public safety, tackle homelessness, and rebuild the region's economy. And he further says, we continue to call upon the federal government to be an active partner in the success of our nation's capital. In other words, Justin, get your ass in gear.
Well, I'm not so sure this is going to really work that well. It's just I have a feeling they're always hitting the wrong buttons. They think they know what they need to do. And when I read it, I said, here we go again. Another initiative that doesn't seem to really fit what the situation really is. They're talking about, okay, we're going to get more asylum seekers. And of course, asylum seekers might want to go to Ottawa to make, here we are. Give us a job, please.
Yeah, get us a job, please, in your new government. Oh, you don't want us?
So it's supposed to be safety. It has to do a lot with safety. Well, why safety? Why safety? Because you have homeless people and asylum seekers. And what does that tell you? That tells you the government thinks that homeless people and asylum seekers are a risk to your safety.
Yeah.
That's really reassuring, isn't it? So we're going to have to spend $48 million to make sure you're safe because of our bad policies on homeless people and asylum seekers. You see what I mean? So it's like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. All right, you got this problem. Let's cover it up. Make sure you don't see it. So improve public safety on transit. Why do you need public safety on transit? Why do you need public safety on transit?
Yeah.
And then it goes on and says $40 million to help address the increased number of asylum seekers and people experience homelessness. So we are unsafe because of asylum seekers and homeless people. That's the undercurrent there. So what we're going to do is make it much more safe. What does that mean? You're going to get more cops, basically, to protect you. That, to me, is the wrong message. The wrong message is why do we have to have this extra security? We should be going the other way. We should be dealing with our society. Well, we need less and less security. We're going to need spend less on security agents in the transportation sector. I'd be shocked if I walked onto a bus and there's a security guy on the bus. Come on. What made our society to the point where we need a security officer?
It is a step in the wrong direction. We need, whilst we do need more security on bus, better security on buses, that comes around from the fact that I think, how many times you've ridden a bus, you're right, but you don't want a security guard on the bus. A person sat at the front of the bus with a gun in his hand, staring at everybody, suspiciously. Yeah, we don't need that.
Yeah. So Doug Ford says, well, this is, and they called it the New Deal for Ottawa. They give it a nice name. Yeah, we're really looking out for the success of our 1 million people that live in Ottawa. We got to make sure that all those people are nice and safe. That from the results of our failed policies on homeless people and asylum seekers. You know what? We failed terribly, but you know what? We're going to fix it. We're not going to. What you got to do is fix the homeless and asylum seekers. Whatever the asylum seekers are, find them a job or whatever. Do their paperwork. If you want to keep them. Find them a job. If they don't, get rid of them. Homeless people, find some ways and means to deal with them, to deal with their addictions and their mental health. No, what you're going to do here is say, we're going to leave all that the same, but we're going to put some more thugs with uniforms on your transit system and you'll be safe. Well, you're not going to be safe if you do not deal with the core problem.
Okay, and welcome to our American listeners again. Nancy Cesarinsky from Cleveland. Right.
Hi, Nancy. How you doing?
Right.
Welcome.
So we need
welcome as citizens from the United States of Trump.
Right. So according to Gary Wilkins, we need more safety against crappy
law firms.
Yeah. Get lost.
Can you bring that up again? I didn't read it.
No, I'm not going to bring that up again.
Oh.
I'm not going to bring that up again. I should have read it before putting it on. Ottawa allowed this crisis to occur and naturally move to throw public funds at the problem. Yeah, exactly. Security guys won't do anything. They aren't allowed to touch anyone. What are they going to do? Give them a stern talking to. Cops do their job, but courts don't. There needs to be less support, less imports and stiffer laws. Deport them. Find funds to help the homeless.
Yeah, and find reasonable means to deal with the homeless. We throw a lot of money at it, but it doesn't go anywhere. We feed our homeless. We try to shelter our homeless. We try to deal with the problems, but there is nothing that has worked. And what's going to happen, and it has happened, as we've mentioned many times on this show, that our tolerance for the homeless people are getting less and less and less.
Yes.
And we find this all over North America, not just in Canada. And the tolerance level is going to be less and less, and people are going to be more harsh with them. And that's already happening. And the same sort of objections are going to come to the asylum seekers as well, when we just can't take it anymore and we can't afford it.
When we got problems in our society, that always is the case.
Yeah, but you know what? For the longest time, we were very, very tolerant of the homeless people. We're very, very understanding. Also for asylum seekers, and that we were. But it comes a point where there's a point of saturation.
Yeah.
You know, and when
we've reached that point long ago now. We're probably at least a year or two ago.
Yes, and when we don't have confidence in how our governments are handling it, it makes it, well, the governments aren't handling it. They're not helping the asylum seekers what they should be doing, or getting rid of the ones that shouldn't be here. They're not dealing with the homeless people well. Their plans have failed. So now, instead of helping the situation, what we'll do is we'll put a lot more security people out there and we'll feel safe. Well, no, because those problems that they're trying to cover up with the kind of Band-Aid just keep growing and festering. So the real problem here, this is an avoidance of trying to deal with the real problem.
And Mike is saying, turn a blind eye to the problems created when no one can afford a house or rent, and hire security to handle the problem instead of addressing the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well
said. Right. Please walk, not drive, from Dorchester and Lundy's Lane all the way down to Queen Street, and tell me what you see. Yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, homeless people started showing up in this neighborhood again. I saw it a couple of days ago. A couple of guys with the huge shopping carts full to the brim, walking up and down. You know, and this is the heart of, you know, pretty much suburban, nice suburban homes and all that. You know, so they're here. They're coming again here into this area.
The question here, Mike, is that when you turn a blind eye to it, it doesn't matter which mode of transportation you use. If you turn a blind eye to it, you will never see the problems in our streets. All right. So, right. And Randy West is basically saying homeless is an underlying choice available to it, whether it be families giving up on loved ones, or people themselves stop trying to get better, or even points where a person no longer holds a mental capacity to fight for themselves. You have left yourself down to a cage. Oh, not any other choices.
Yes, and I'd like to put this out there too. I think among the homeless, I've seen, of course, men and women, but by and large, I see mostly men. Is this a reflection of what's happening in our society? That men are falling off the edge, more and more young men becoming homeless. It seems to me that the lion's share of the homeless people I see are always men. I mean, there are women I see that are homeless and struggling, but by the most part, I see as men. As an aside, there's a lot of talk now about how the Dems lost the election because they ignored men, and the statistics were of men, particularly young men. Suicide rates have gone way up. Men's unhappiness, basically, all in all, men are becoming less successful compared to previous generations. They feel detached and left out. Is this massive amount of homelessness happening now partly a function of that? if there are even numbers of men and women homeless, then you wouldn't say that. But it seems to me that there are more and more men. Why are men failing more than women?
Yeah, and in fact, actually, I think you're partially right about the U.S. vote.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff about the Democrats kind of scolding the men for looking towards Trump, but they didn't have any answers for them, did they? They didn't say, this is what we can do for men. This is what we can do for men.
No.
We see problems among men, so we can address them. So
Peter Biker has said, we have created a hungry, idle class of Canadians who won't even get a spot on the carousel of commerce. Have you unlearned our survival instinct?
Yeah, you're kind of, he writes well. That's poetic almost.
Yeah. All right. Next article there, which was Ontario helping veterans start new careers in skilled trades. This one is the one, it's also from Ontario. It's about 3 million investment through helmets to hard hats, which is to support former Canadian Armed Forces personnel transition to the trades. And this is supported by Doug Ford. The announcement is just one way basically announcement was saying this is just one way our government is working to give back so veterans can transition from the armed forces to rewarding careers in the skilled trades.
Well, there's something here that doesn't really fit. What we need is more armed forces. Like, we'd be told that over and over again. Our spending in NATO has been dismal, and we're reaping the results of that. So
that may well be true, but it's a different end of the scale. We still need people, former armed forces people, to have careers at the end of their service.
Well, there's something here that is not spoken of, and I found this out just a little while ago, quite by coincidence. The armed forces are going through all the people they have, and they're kind of forcing them out. They're giving them severance packages and stuff. People who cannot. The aim of the armed forces now is that if you cannot be deployed overseas, then you can't help. If you have too many problems, health problems, mental health problems, or any other thing, what they're going to do is transition you out of the military and give you severance packages and give you retraining. I think that a lot of this has to do with this. They want to clean up their rebuild their military around young men and women that can be deployed anywhere in the world without having a whole lot of health issues. Right now, some of them can't go because of mental health issues or stuff like that. So what they want to do is rebuild their military and bring in young men and women that can be deployed that way. And I have a sneaking suspicion that this retraining thing has a lot to do with that, because I know a friend of mine whose son is now in that situation. He's been with the armed forces for a very long time, and they pretty much told him, look, you have too many issues with your health and stuff, even though you're a really good soldier and you're wanted here and all that other stuff but we feel that we can't use you the way we want to use you. So what we're going to do is, here's your severance package and we're going to retrain you.
And what about pushing, what about, careers within the armed forces, moving them up the ranks, or dealing with technical, giving them technical roles?
I think the armed forces should be used somewhat like they do in the United States, where if you have a lot of young men who need to be trained in the trades and stuff, that's a good way. I know of at least one guy who a childhood friend of mine who went to well, actually, childhood friend of my brother's. So he went. He couldn't get a job. He couldn't get an apprenticeship. So what he did was he joined the Army and became a mechanic for the Army. Yeah. And in the Army, he learned the trade of being a mechanic and a heavy equipment mechanic and stuff. And after he done his 9 or 10 year term or whatever it is, then he came back out into the private sector. Now he was a skilled man. Yeah. Now he could use his skills in the private sector.
No, that's an absolute great way of doing it. And and he already has the skills. What part of what they're talking about here is those that don't necessarily have the skills.
Yeah, they've been in the Army. So what have they been treating them in the Army? How to kill people? Like you can choose in the Army which way to go. You can be I worked with a guy who was in the elite forces.
We've got a lot of choices in the Army.
Yeah, and he said the problem with that is it's not marketable afterwards.
Yeah,
when you get out. So he was an elite combat commando type dude. He was among the elite forces.
There's
kind of like the Navy SEALs kind of thing. Canada's version of the Navy SEALs. And
the only job you can potentially do there is private security or private investigator, that type of thing.
Yeah, you might be able to transition to a cop, but that kind of thing. But it's not a marketable skill. And he told me about another young man. So we're in the exactly situation. He being a part of the elite group, but now he wants to get out of the military and sort of get into the private sector, but he doesn't have any marketable skills.
Yeah.
He does have marketable skills if he wants to go overseas and become a mercenary, but aside from that,
I'm presuming part of the reason for getting out is the fact that he no longer wants that life.
Yeah. Now the other guys I've worked with were in the military. They went into the electronics fields. They went into electronics fields or as mechanics or some other skills, electrician. Some guys, a lot of indigenous guys joined up the Army. Indigenous people from this side of the border, from the res, would go into I talked to some guys from the res, ironworkers, that they'll learn their skills not here. They jumped on. They went and they joined up the U.S. Army, and they went to different places around the world building things, and that's where they learned their skills in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Basically, they learned skills, and then came back. They had marketable skills. They were first-rate ironworkers after that time, and erectors, right? So they could get jobs. This is kind of a good idea, I guess, but I think the skills should start in the military, basically, instead of trying.
I tend to agree, but again, not everybody who's in the military gets that training, do they?
No, and that's where I see a flaw in this a little bit. So now we're spending a lot of money. We've taken men and women into the military. We find that they don't have marketable skills to get out of the military. So why haven't they been taught these, and why haven't they been told that in the very beginning when they get into the military? Say, look, we're going to bring you in the military, and you're not going to stay here forever. So what you want to do is try to find areas where you're interested in, and we'll develop those skills for you. We'll need those skills filled in our military. But when you try to leave the military, you will at least have a skill to be marketable back outside.
Yeah.
So I think they should start there rather than wait until you have a bunch of people who can't find a job and say, well, now we got to pay you to be retrained. It's another.
Fact, actually, there was a time, if I remember rightly, or maybe I'm not thinking of Canadian military, but British military. There was a time at one point when you joined the military that you would get farmed around certain areas in order that they could understand. Like you might work in the kitchens, you might work in the mechanic shop, you might work in this and that and the other part of the military, even though you were doing your military training at the same time, in order that you could understand the other skills that you may well need, because mechanics are needed on the front, cooks are needed on the front, etc., etc., etc. And if you can repair a car while you're fighting, while your buddies are fighting you out of a patch, that's a great skill.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things, like I said, it's kind of backward. I kind of like the American system in a way where when they do bring in military people, that's a good way in which a lot of very unskilled people can learn a skill and then go back into this civilian service. I think that
even with the American system, there's a lot of unemployed ex-military out there.
Yeah, and I think it's the same kind of ex-military. It would be the soldiers, the frontline, those people who are trained to be frontline soldiers. Basically, they have the skills to be under pressure and to maneuver and all those kinds of things. But you don't find those skills needed in the private sector.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a constant problem. It really is a constant problem, and we're talking about it this week because of it being, being September 11th yesterday, being, because of the importance of that yesterday.
Yeah, so I would think that there's another sort of, like we just talked about Ottawa and how we're going to put a big Band-Aid on that because they can't deal with the asylum seekers and the homeless without putting more security people out there. So they're not really dealing with the real issue at hand. And they're still not dealing with the issue at hand. So they take in people into the military and then they toss them back out without train them first. Find ways of training them so they don't have to add another $48 million to train them.
Yeah. Okay. So Randy West is basically saying helping vets into working trades is as simple as announcing tax rebates for wages spent on vets hired into working trades. However, when government announces programs, what they are saying is that they intend to waste a ton of dollars on groups, studied offices and other red tapes, which takes too much effort from the majority of businesses whose time is spent looking for work rather than battling red tape.
And I'm not so sure they're going to do it the right way. I remember when I was at George Brown College doing my welding check tests, and they had of course, they had a lot of asylum seekers even way back then, and they had a lot of people that couldn't from other countries that couldn't fit into the workforce. So what they decided to do, they didn't know what to do. So here we're gonna teach them a skill. We'll make them all welders. So you get all these people coming that have no industrial experience at all, nothing at all, and you throw them in a classroom and you teach them how to weld plate, more plate until they get their 4 tickets. But once they go, then you think they're going to be put back into industry. Well, they're going to be so out of place in industry. They're not going to be able to weld under pressure. They're not going to be able to, they haven't seen an industrial landscape at all. And you think these people are going to go in and start welding. No, you don't. That would be a complete foreign place for them. You cannot just weld plate and get your 4 tickets and think that you're going to be able to apply that in an industrial setting very easily. So that's the government's idea. I know. We'll make a whole bunch of welders. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Well, for one thing, now now there's way too many welders out there. And then when a contractor does pick a welder and find out the guy has no experience outside of a classroom where he's welding plate, and getting his part, is he really going to hire that guy?
Yeah. Okay. So another one, Peter Biker is saying brave veterans could be among the poorer, valuable politicians. Their perspective is undervalued. I get that. He's also saying, how about creating a Canadian Corps of Engineers who could contribute to the nation building right here at home?
That's a good idea, but
that's a great idea. I like that.
As long as it's not competing with the private sector, it can fill up the gaps where the private sector can't fill. You don't want to stifle your private sector. But the Corps of Army Engineers can look for contracts like they do in the States. I don't know if they do that here. The Army Corps of Engineers in the States also look for contracts and funding outside of the government to do their work. Now, you could do that. The one thing I think that the military should be very trained in is disaster relief. So you have a large body of well-disciplined soldiers that are trained in disaster relief, whether it's forest fires, flooding, snowfalls, or whatever, that they can go in and hook up electrical power again, get roads open again, save people that have been flooded out. All these things, I think they should be trained in disaster relief, or to be able to take over in situations where the local facilities can't handle. They should be trained as linemen, so they reconnect power when it's down in a disaster area, when you have a massive ice storm or something like that. Trained to clear out trees, arborists, and all that kind of thing. If you take your military, and you have to train it for military challenges, that means guns and shooting other people, sadly. But you can also train that large body of men to do a lot of different work.
You were talking about a number of problems that we face in society, and that is a challenge part of the military. So if they're going into an area where there's been a storm, etc., they have to get through that storm and survive it. Deal with the down power lines. They have to deal with the broken trees, etc., in order to advance.
Take a look at the Roman army. The Roman army centuries ago, what did the Roman army do? Well, they weren't always fighting, were they?
No.
They were fighting and patrolling. But when there were times that they weren't, what did they do? They built roads.
Absolutely, they did. Yeah.
And they built
it's the same sort of thing. It's the same basic thing, so you advance 100 miles. Now you've got to build the communications behind you, communications routes behind you.
Yeah, and when they look at old Roman soldiers' bones, when they dig up an old grave, a Roman soldier or something, a centurion, they will see bone spurs and things in their body and their bones and stuff that suggest the kind of work that they were doing. So when you have a large body of men like that, disciplined, you can direct them anywhere you want.
Yeah,
and I think that's perhaps one of the things we should do as a military here. We do need to spend more money. We're getting shamed out of NATO because we're so penny pinching with our military, and now we're being shamed for NATO for doing that. Well, here's an opportunity where we could take in a lot more, particularly young people, train them well, and then use them in areas of disaster relief, train them for disaster relief, train them for all kinds of other things. And that would suit the kind, then the money that you spent on that military will pay off big dividends.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on, Canada cancels the automatic 10-year multiple entry visa. So this has actually been criticized by many people, that you get this like automatically issued 10-year multi-entry visa if you're getting a multi-entry visa. And Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada have been severely criticized over this visa, and people have been just simply questioning, why is this is kind of handed out like confetti.
Yeah, the Canadian government, as we're going, and the Canadian government sees all the kind of resistance it's getting for its policy. It re-examines them, and it understands that, well, there's an election coming, so we got to fix these things. So we see a reduction in foreign workers. We see a reduction in students. We see a reduction in permanent immigrants. All these things that have put strains on our system. And now they're going to do the visa thing. Well, the multi-entry visas are nothing new. I could have got one for Ghana when I went to Ghana, but it would just cost more, and it's a little bit more red tape.
And,
so I could have
the point being is, with a multi-entry visa, for example, if you've got a businessman who's coming here, coming here for a month every 3 months or something, it makes a great deal of sense to give them a multi-entry visa, because they come in, they don't have to explain themselves every time they come in. They do their work, they're off back home again, they come back again. But the point about multiple entry visas is that they need to be for a specific purpose, for a specific period of time, and they have certain conditions with them that relates to ties to their home country. It's not a way into Canada.
Yeah, well, unfortunately it is, because when your 10-year multi-visa is coming to an end and you're afraid you might not get another one, then you just stay. And where are you now? Who knows where you are? You've come in and out of Canada for 10 years. You know exactly where to hide in the system. That's part of the problem. I don't think they screen these well enough. Of course, let's say you have a businessman from Ghana, right? I just mentioned Ghana, right? So you get, say, a business guy from Ghana, and he's selling wares from Ghana to Canada, and he comes and goes and comes and goes. He needs to do that, or she needs to do that. Musicians or anything else, like a musician from the United States. Well, we don't need a visa there, but say you're a musician from Zimbabwe or something like that, and you perform regularly in North America, you can get a 10-year visa because you're going in and out. When you read between the lines of this policy is they have noticed that they haven't screened these people well enough to give them, to issue them a 10-year in and out visa.
And why 10 years?
Have they really fixed it? Go ahead.
Yeah. And why 10 years? Why not 3? Why not 3 or something else like that? It might it's about what is specific and what is needed in order to fix, in order to deal with that individual's requirements.
Yeah, seriously. Look at all the British people that came over here. They blend in because they know the language, and we can't get rid of them. So the jokes aside, though, if you read between the lines, and when the government has tried to fix this, the visas, remember they were allowed. Suddenly they decided that Mexicans don't need visas to come to Canada. Well, what happened? We got 30,000 Mexicans, and they want to stay. And when you say you got to go back home, they claim refugee status, or just melt into the. So the government is extremely naive. What do you think is going to happen if you do that? What happens if you say to Honduras, oh, well, come on up. Here's your tourist visa. It's easy to get. And you notice they're not going home. So that they're not screening them well enough, and that's why.
And Randy is basically saying, why wouldn't we make somebody explain themselves every time they come into the country?
Well, that's when I read between the lines here. The criteria of explaining yourself is too low. When they say, "Oh, I have a family back home, I have a business back home. There's no way I'm going to stay here," and that's not. And so the government says, "Okay, you're good." Nobody bothers to check up on that kind of thing or fact check it. And usually the government is very slow and ponderous, and it had a backlog of visa requirements or visa applications, so that what their solution was to reduce the qualifications for them to speed up the backlog of visas. Well, what happened is you got a lot of people coming here and either claiming refugee status or just melting into the Canadaverse. And hey, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go back home.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Betty's saying when you get a call from a business, say you had to credit their like 2000, like year 2000 or older, unsure it's yours, are they allowed to collect? I think that's a different issue.
That year two, I don't really understand what Betty's talking about there, but you're the legal. Maybe you can contact her later.
Well, a debt owed is still a debt owed, irrespective of how old it is, under Canadian law. That's all I know. That's all I know in this regard.
I don't know if that helps Betty at all, but I'm not so sure I completely understand what she's asking there.
Not so sure I understand the question either.
Is it okay? Go ahead.
If you got a question like that and you want to give us a call, you can do so at my office. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So anything else on the cancelling of these? Well, I think it's a good thing overall that we've addressed these visas. Canada's been kind of, I think there's been a lot of criticism of our government, and a lot of it seemingly valid because of the fact that we just don't seem to, they don't seem to get it. And if you actually criticize them about these issues, oh, you must be racist, right? And that's part of the problem. Yeah, that it's like there's plenty of people who are not racist who are, who are raising the flag and saying, "Hey, we've got a problem here."
I think, as much as I hate to say it, a lot of times I think Polyev was right about this. We had a very good immigration system, very, very good. That was good for the country. We had a steady flow of immigrants coming in. We had a steady flow of students and all these things, and we were able to manage that we were doing our level best to make sure that our country was serviced well by immigration. Yeah. When Trudeau government came in and had this idealistic idea to make our country 30% foreign born by 2035 or whatever else, and then just opened the doors like crazy, let people in, was extremely naive, and it caused a lot of problems. And it has exposed how sloppy the feds are when it comes to visas and all those kind of things. And to tell you the truth, that the fact that they're re-examining the 10-year multi-entry visas is telling me they got it all wrong in the first place. And I have no confidence in them fixing it because I don't think they get it,
Yeah. And you see, multi-entry visas have their purpose, that's for sure.
They definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And for example, if you were say European and you're coming to North America because you're doing work in, well, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. I said European just as an example. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, but you're coming here to do business in Canada and the United States. That's an ideal reason why you might want a multi-entry visa, because you come into Canada, into Toronto, you fly then to Chicago, you then come back to Manitoba, you then go back again to Chicago, you then go back to Toronto, etc., over a month or couple of three or 4 months even, right?
Yeah, but the fact is, sure, there's lots of really good reasons why people have to have multi-entrance visas. Yeah, of course they do, but who are getting them? And that's what we read between the lines when we read this. It pretty much says we messed it up really bad, and now we got to fix it.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what they're saying.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately a lot of what has been said here.
Plus, there's that election that's coming, and of course, the government is scrambling around trying to fix everything that the Canadian people have noticed,
Yeah.
but the Canadian government has ignored.
And Randy is basically saying Trudeau was simply hoping to increase his taxable base. And Betty was replying, letting too many for the count for the court for the country to care about them. Yeah.
Yeah, you can only, and that's been the biggest problem with the big move by the Liberals to bring in an enormous amount of people to grow the country extremely fast. It really hasn't worked well because we haven't built houses for them. We haven't expanded our healthcare enough for them, and we haven't asked for the right skills from our immigrants in many cases. So the ones that are doctors, accountants, roofers, or plumbers, or anything like that come from South Africa or wherever they might want to come from, yeah, we need them so we can put them to work. But I don't think it's been seen well enough by the government. They have these idealistic notions, and they are elitists, and they just don't understand what really the needs of the country are. They have to be told that. And every time they try to fix the immigration system, they seem to get it even worse. What we don't want is a right-wing backlash against people coming into the country. We don't want that. We want to put the immigration to a level that's sustainable, so we keep welcoming these people in, and they can grow their lives, actually, and they can help us grow our economy.
And sometimes you actually have to say no. Sometimes you actually have to say, no, we're not letting people in. Okay, we got a comment from a new listener here. Sherland Harichan, Charan. Canada made a big mistake during COVID, bringing lots of people into the country without setting out proper adaptations here in Canada.
Adaptations.
Sorry, their lifestyle didn't match the Canadian way of life and values. Look at Brampton. He was saying, okay, a town taken over by immigration of Indians. They do not follow any of the bylaws, etc. Right, moving on.
I don't know about that. I haven't lived in Brampton. Brampton. I mean, I haven't lived in Brampton, so I don't know how well they.
There's a lot. Well, it is true. It is true that there are many. Immigrants often don't know how our legal system works in first instance, and do ignore things like bylaws. Typically, bylaws are the most. Often the ones that are ignored the most. Right, Betty. Now everyone suffers, like you said. Hospitals, other agencies that help. Yeah, and how do you fit this now?
How do you fit this now? Basically, I think that the idea is to slow down the rate of immigration so that the immigrants that have come into the country can find a way of assimilating. We have this multi-ethnic or multicultural idea that you get to stay who you are within Canada. You get to be a Sikh, but a Canadian Sikh. You get to be a Hindu, but a Canadian Hindu. You get to be a Russian, but a Canadian Russian. So you keep alive your culture inside of Canada. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. You still have to assimilate.
I think think a mixing is needed, right? Mixture is needed. Mixture is good, right?
Yeah, but you can't do that if you bring too many people in all at once.
Oh, absolutely.
You need time for the new communities to assimilate.
Yeah,
and to learn.
Yeah. Okay, and Peter Biker is saying if they can't enforce their authority, they cannot maintain it. And Betty is saying that's the law. It's if it was truckers, they would be full of force. Okay, it's bad. It's bad in Brampton. It's full of why I don't know. Trudeau does private house calls there. Does he?
I
Okay,
don't know.
I don't know either. Let's just say our country is a big mess, and we've got issues. Yeah, that's for sure, right? And
Well,
it's not
that's why we're going to have a right wing reaction. Well, not right wing. In Canada, it's more conservative. I don't think we step too far to the right here, like other Western nations have found right now. But there's going to be a conservative backlash, a big one coming. Whether the NDP and the Liberals are going to be marginalized if what we see is going to come out, and it's largely because of unrealistic and poor management and unrealistic ideals of the Liberal government and their poor management. And so I hope it doesn't go too far the other way. We still need a level of immigrants coming into the country.
We need a balance, right? And it's made especially hard by the fact that in certain parts of the world, the refugee crisis is at an all-time high. Okay, assimilation is needed, says Sherland. Betty says too many Canadians think why we can't feed our own people. Yeah, why can't we feed our own people?
Yeah, this is the juxtaposition we find. We're bringing in asylum seekers, refugees, all that kind of thing. We treat them very well, and yet our own people, the homeless people are growing. The people who are have enough to pay rent but don't have enough to get proper food and have to go to the food kitchens and stuff like that. So those two opposing things really doesn't make sense. We're trying to save the world, but we can't save ourselves.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. Okay, I think we can kind of we can kind of, we need to come to bring this to an end anyway, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because we're kind of quite a bit over time. Yeah, Randy, have a great day yourself, and everybody here have a great day. And I think that it's time to come to bring that to a close. Dave?
Yes, thank you everyone for listening, and your comments are very much appreciated. Without further ado, I bid you adieu.